Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the life of Antônio Luiz Sayão. He was a pivotal figure in the development of Spiritism in Brazil. We'll be using the Centro Espírita Caminheiros da Fraternidade website as our main source for this. So, yeah, get ready for some fascinating history as we unpack his life and work and what it reveals about this movement in those early years.
You know what's really interesting about Sayão is that his background is not what you'd typically expect for someone who was drawn to Spiritism, especially back then.
Yeah, like how so?
Well, this guy, he wasn't some kind of, like fringe mystic.
Right.
He was a respected lawyer born in Rio de Janeiro back in 1829. He had a solid career, but then boom, in 1878, he converts to Spiritism.
That is quite the shift. And that was still pretty early on in the movement, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what could have drawn someone like him to Spiritism?
Yeah.
Especially at that time.
Well, I think it shows how Spiritism was really tapping into some of the big ideas and changes that were happening back then. You had all these incredible scientific discoveries, social upheaval, and Spiritism, with its emphasis on both like reason and evidence, but also on spirit communication, that offered a really unique perspective.
I see what you mean.
But Sayão, he didn't just become a believer. He became a real builder for the movement.
Oh, so he got involved in organizing things.
Oh, absolutely. He actually co-founded a group called the Grupo dos Humildes.
Grupo dos Humildes.
A group of the humble in English. And later that group evolved into the Grupo Ismael da Federação Espírita Brasileira.
Okay.
And this group played a critical role in the formation of the Federação Espírita Brasileira.
Oh, wow. The FEB.
Exactly, the FEB. And that's still a major force in Brazilian Spiritism today.
Yeah, wow. Now that name, Grupo dos Humildes, Group of the Humble. Yeah, it's really striking.
Right.
Does that tell us something about how Sayão approached Spiritism? And was this a common thing back then?
Yeah. It definitely points to the importance of humility in Spiritism. But, I think it also hints at the challenges this early group was facing. I mean, they were challenging religious and social norms. To some people, they would have been seen as really strange.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Maybe even dangerous. So this idea of humility, it suggests that Sayão focused on service, on helping those in need, really living out those values.
And the website really stresses his charity work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It talks about how he provided shelter and aid to the poor, and especially to people escaping slavery.
Wow.
Imagine that back then. His home was a refuge for these people. He even raised children who had lost their parents. So it wasn't just about, giving money.
Wow.
It was about aligning his actions with the core values of Spiritism.
It sounds like he was walking the walk, really embodying those beliefs. Mm-hmm. But the website mentions a book that he wrote called Trabalhos Espíritas. And it talks about some turbulent times for the Grupo dos Humildes.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of turmoil are we talking about here?
That's where it gets really interesting. His book gives us a first-hand account of those challenges. They face skepticism from scientists and moral panic from certain religious groups.
Right.
And even within the group itself, there were debates about the role of mediums and the best ways to practice Spiritism. It was a lot to deal with.
It sounds like it. So he was a writer. What other works did he leave behind?
Well, besides Trabalhos Espíritas, he wrote Estudos Evangélicos, Jesus perante a Cristandade, de Jesus para as Crianças. He also started Do Calvário ao Apocalypse, but unfortunately he didn't finish that one.
Now this is where it gets really fascinating to me. Several of those books, even after his close friend and mentor Bittencourt Sampaio died, were supposedly dictated by Sampaio's spirit.
Really?
Yeah. What does that actually mean in the context of Spiritism?
This gets to the heart of the Spiritist belief in the afterlife and the idea that we can communicate with spirits. It's called psychography. And it was super important in those early days of Spiritism. It suggests that death for Spiritists isn't an end, but just, a transition.
Right.
And that those who have passed can still influence and inspire us here in the physical world.
So their collaboration, in a way, it continued even after death.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty profound concept.
This idea of spiritual guidance,
yeah.
It's so central to understanding Spiritism.
Absolutely. And the website, it actually mentions that some of Sayão's work was done through psychography, mediums receiving messages, even entire texts from spirits. And it's a practice that's still going on today.
Wow. That raises so many questions about how this worked, how did they make sure the messages were authentic? Seems like an area worth exploring more. But Sayão's time in this world, it did come to an end.
It did. He passed away in 1903, almost 74 years old.
Okay.
And the website says that he remained a devout and charitable person throughout his illness.
Wow.
And his final words, Este é último canto do cisne. This is the swan's last song. There's a real poetry to that.
It is a beautiful image and very fitting for a man who lived such a spiritually rich life.
There's this little detail on the website that I think is really interesting. It says that Sayão and Bittencourt Sampaio, they left another group, the Deus Cristo y Caridad Society.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, because they disagreed with some of the folks there who they felt were too focused on the, pride of science.
So even back then, there were different interpretations of Spiritism.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, think about it. This was a new movement attracting all sorts of people. Different ideas and approaches were bound to pop up.
It seems like this particular disagreement was about the balance between like the scientific and the spiritual.
Exactly. Some people, like those Sayão and Sampaio disagree with, may have leaned more into the scientific side, emphasizing the evidence for spirit communication.
Right.
While others, like Sayão and Sampaio, maybe they focused more on the moral and philosophical teachings, seeing the scientific part as just, one piece of a bigger spiritual puzzle.
So how did these different views play out? Was there like a big split in the movement or just sort of an ongoing debate?
It's hard to say for sure without diving deeper into the historical records, but what we do know is that Sayão and Sampaio, they felt strongly enough about their views to break away from Deus, Cristo y Caridad, and start their own thing. And as we talked about their Grupo dos Humildes, that became a major force in shaping Brazilian Spiritism. So this disagreement, even though it might have caused some tension, it also led to the movement branching out, which is often how new ideas, take root and spread.
It's so interesting to see how those early debates played out and shaped things. But let's go back to Sayão for a moment. His dedication to charity, helping those in need, it really shows a desire to live those Spiritist principles.
Absolutely. It's a powerful example of how beliefs are strongest when you put them into action. Sayão wasn't just, studying this stuff.
Yeah.
He was living it, and it directly impacted people's lives.
It seems like he really saw that connection between his Spiritist beliefs and the need to be active in the world to alleviate suffering. It makes me wonder what we can all learn from that, regardless of our own personal beliefs. It's one thing to understand a philosophy, but it's another to really embody it in your actions and how you interact with the world.
That's a great point. Real change happens when we apply what we learn and let it guide us.
So we've talked about Sayão's early life, his conversion, his role in the early Spiritist movement, his charity work, and his writings. We even touched on those disagreements about how to approach Spiritism. But we haven't really talked much about his passing. The website describes it as a peaceful transition, but there's also a sense of mystery about his final words.
You mean este el último canto do cisne? This is the swan's last song?
Yeah, exactly. There's a real beauty to that statement, like a sense of acceptance and even anticipation.
Right.
And remember, he was deeply involved in Spiritism. He believed that life continued beyond the physical. So for him, death wouldn't have been an ending, but a transition to another phase.
Exactly. That understanding that death is a transformation probably shaped his whole approach to life. It wasn't about clinging to this earthly existence, but about embracing the journey, knowing that it continues even after our bodies are gone.
What a powerful way to live, with that awareness that our existence goes beyond what we can see and touch.
It makes you think about what really matters, focusing on growth, on love, on service. It brings a sense of peace and purpose, even when we're facing, those big life changes.
And it seems like Sayão lived a life full of purpose. From embracing Spiritism to his work, helping others, his life really showed how powerful belief can be in inspiring action and leaving a mark on the world.
And his legacy still inspires people today, not just in the Spiritist community, but for anyone who wants to live a meaningful life, guided by love and service. His story shows that true fulfillment comes from making a difference in the lives of others, from making the world a better place.
That's beautifully said. But the exploration doesn't have to stop here. We've just scratched the surface of Antônio Luiz Sayão's life and the fascinating world of early Brazilian Spiritism. Remember those other names mentioned on the website, Inácio Ferreira, Divaldo Pereira Franco, Elizabeth Desperance. They were all a part of this growing movement.
Yeah, for sure. We encourage everyone to dig deeper into Sayão's writings, research those other figures, really immerse yourselves in the history of Brazilian Spiritism. You might be surprised at what you find.
These deep dives are all about sparking your curiosity and encouraging you to explore new ideas and perspectives. You never know where these journeys might lead you.
It's like planting seeds of knowledge and inspiration. What grows from them, well, that's up to you.
Well said. But for now, we'll have to leave it there. It really strikes me that Sayão's story, it really shows us the human side of Spiritism. It's easy to get caught up in the mystical elements like spirit communication. But at its core, Spiritism, it's about people. People searching for connection and meaning, a way to understand life and death.
Absolutely. Sayão, he embodies that. He wasn't just thinking about the spirit world. He was actually living out his beliefs. And those beliefs directly impacted the lives of other people.
And that brings us back to his dedication to helping those in need. The website highlights how he offered shelter and aid to the poor, and especially to people escaping slavery.
And what's really interesting here is that Sayão was challenging the very fabric of society. He was living a radical form of equality, recognizing the inherent worth of each person, regardless of their social standing or their situation. This wasn't just charity. This was like a statement, a testament to his belief in the connectedness of all beings.
It makes you think about the effect he had on the people he helped, the hope he gave them during a really difficult time. It's a good reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness, they can have a ripple effect.
And that's a message that goes way beyond Spiritism. It's a universal truth. When we choose compassion and help others, we uplift them, but we also enrich our own lives in the process.
It's that reminder that we're all connected. Yeah. And that brings us back to this idea of spirit communication, the possibility of connecting with those who've passed. If Spiritism teaches us anything, it's that death isn't the end. It's a transition.
Right. And seeing death as a transformation can be so comforting. Especially when we're dealing with loss and grief, it opens up this possibility of staying connected and getting support from loved ones even after they're gone.
It is a beautiful idea that love and connection can go beyond time and space. Yeah. And for Sayão, that connection seems like it was very real. Remember how several of his books were said to be dictated by the spirit of his friend, Britancourt Sampaio?
Yeah. Their relationship must have been incredibly strong, spiritually and just on a personal level. And it highlights this core belief in Spiritism that communication with the spirit world isn't just possible, it's a natural part of our existence.
It is a fascinating idea, and one we can all explore no matter what our personal beliefs are. This idea of connecting with those who've passed, seeking guidance and wisdom, that resonates with so many cultures and spiritual traditions.
Yeah. It speaks to this very human need for connection, for meaning, for a sense of something bigger than ourselves that continues on even after this physical world. And whether that connection happens through meditation prayer or just quiet contemplation, it can bring peace and comfort. It reminds us that we're not alone.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Antônio Luiz Sayão's life, I'm struck by how rich and complex his story is. He was a lawyer, a spiritual leader, a philanthropist, an author, and most importantly, a man who lived by his beliefs. He actively tried to make the world a better place.
His story really encourages us to look at our own beliefs and how we act on them. How can we live with purpose and meaning driven by compassion and a desire to help others?
His life was such a powerful example of how just one person can make a real difference. And his legacy reminds us that true fulfillment doesn't come from material things, but from helping others and leaving the world a little bit brighter than we found it. So you move forward. Remember Sayão's story. Be curious, seek connection, and try to make a positive impact. You might be surprised by what you discover along the way.
Until next time, keep those minds open and those spirits curious.